Casper, thank you very much. Just before we move on to our next question, if you're listening at home, just remember you can get involved. You can send us a message via the shout box on our Smoke Radio homepage. Send us an email, unitalk@smokeradio.co.uk, or why not send us a tweet @smoke_radio. Now let's take our next question.
Next question, I do believe, is from Andre.
Yeah, my question is, what is the big society and why hasn't it caught on?
So Jason, Theo George from Conservative Youth. Basically, what is the big society?
Well, the big society, as we can all appreciate, is a lot of things. And I think, firstly, what it is an inspirational message by a Prime Minister who actually wants to change the way society, the direction society is taken, and to move in a more positive direction, where communities are built, where the individual feels more empowered, and where people are generally happier, because we've seen poll after poll that shows that people in a prosperous country just aren't as happy as they used to be, and we have to ask why. And the big society, through countless things that it includes, from local government transparency to the National Citizen Service for 16-year-olds, to the big society bank that's going to lend to community and charity groups, is doing so much across the whole of society to actually make Britain a nicer, happier, better place.
Okay. Gemma, I saw you smiling at the beginning of that question. Is that because you don't know what the big society is? Or do you think it's a bit of a farce?
I personally struggle to see how I would implement in my personal capacity as a citizen the big society. I mean, I, for example, work 12 hours a day with a 2-hour commute, and not only is it kind of, I think, where the population is, they already feel that they do quite a lot in terms of volunteering, charity work and giving up their time to speak to other people, as well as nowadays people have busy personal lives and concentrate on their career and all these other things. So to sort of dismantle the state in such a way and and it is a presumption that, or a hope that people will be able to come in and plug the hole, I think just seems quite frankly ridiculous in my personal view. I think there's a lot of other problems with it. In fact, that a lot of charities have said, with all the cuts to local government, the basis of how they function, the very foundation, is being undermined through massive cuts to where the buildings they use, to local government funding that they access, to the expertise that they can access, is being completely cut from under them. So the fact that a lot of these charities will then come in and be able to build in a volunteer workforce is just, again, I think, completely unrealistic. There's an issue with the big society bank in that it's going to lend at real interest rates, which for a lot of these charities, they're not economically viable in that way. They're a charity, they're not a business.
Jason,
and I think it's very complicated about how you would do this.
Charities.
Oh, certainly not, because there are, it's only a minority it's only a quarter of charities that depend on state funds, and to say that, that somehow the charitable sector can't stand on its own 2 feet is utterly patronising, I think, to them. I mean, the RNLI, the lifeguard charity, doesn't receive a penny from the public purse. Yet it does fantastic. It's one of our best charities in this country. So to presume that charities will somehow go under because of cuts, there is no link whatsoever. And I think, the big society is far more than an idea. There are proactive steps being taken.
I'd say it was only an idea.
No, but it's, of course, like everything. It starts off as an idea. Throughout our history, FDR's New Deal started off as an idea, okay? And I think, you've just got to give it a chance to grow, because you can't just kill it off at the first sign of it because of your cynicism. What am I doing? Yeah. Well, I've been involved in community groups since I was about 15. If it's not helping my local church, it's helping other community groups. I'm a member of the TA. I do countless things. And to somehow say that people work too hard, and they can't do anything more, it's applicable, I accept, to some people. But it's utterly selfish to assume that that every single person in this country can't find an ounce of time to do more for their local community and to do more for other people. Fine, some people do understandably have take on a considerable burden, and that's fine for them. But there are other people who could do more. And I think the message, by politicians putting out these messages, they could actually end up inspiring people to do more. And that can only be a good thing.
Now, Jason, some criticism is that the big society is just a cover for cuts. What would you say to those people who feel that?
It's utterly wrong to draw a link between the two. I mean, the cuts are there to deal with our economic decline, to deal with the deficit and our debt, which is coming up to £1 trillion this year. I mean, we're going into £500 million of debt every single day. That's why the cuts are there, so we don't follow the path of Ireland and Greece and have to implement even greater cuts when the IMF suddenly comes in, intervenes with the declining economy. The big society is there to reverse the cynicism that's been built up over the last 13 years under Labour, and to actually tackle what many have seen as social decline in Britain. And people have observed social decline across the political spectrum. It's not a conservative perspective. Britain is not as happy as it used to be, and people aren't doing as much charity as they used to. We're giving just 1% to charity today, whereas in the 50s we used to give 10%. And that's, it's arrogant to assume that we can't do more. And I think British people are fundamentally good people. And they do want to do well, and they are benevolent, and they just need, and the message coming out from the Prime Minister to push people in that direction is a fantastically positive step, I think.
Caspar Melville, editor of The New Humanist. David Cameron has said that his mission in politics is to make the big society succeed, and made claims it is being wrecked by spending cuts. I know you're itching to get at this one, so what do you think of Cameron's statement there?
It seems to me incoherent and a combination of three things that I don't like. One is David Cameron is a PR guy. And as a PR guy, he's a very successful PR guy. I don't hate him as much as I feel I should hate him because he's so good at being a PR guy. But a PR guy who's gone in and said, I need a big idea. Now, he hasn't moved very far from the idea that he needs a big idea to what that idea is, which is the big society. On the one hand, as you point out, and the big society already exists. We have an enormous charity sector. We give loads. We do a lot. Not everyone. It's not equally spread, but it's already there. So very clever to lay claim to something which already exists. The other thing, of course, is the attempt, and I know David Cameron and other Conservatives are big followers of the idea that we should try and devolve lots of what the central government is responsible for, the welfare state, elements of the welfare state, onto local community groups, charity groups, and faith groups in particular, churches, who already provide an infrastructure and very, very, are the places where you can try and get those places to provide an element of social care and pastoral care and all kinds of stuff which the government doesn't really want to do. So I think it's a combination of those three things. I don't find it at all inspiring. I think it's laughable. I think it's really cheeky. As someone who runs a charity myself, New Humanist is produced by a charity called the Rationalist Association. We get absolutely no money from the government. We're funded by people who value secularism and rationalism. There's a very healthy charity sector. In fact, it's a huge employer in this country. I think, I don't know where you get your figures from, but it seems to me completely wrong that we give much less now than we used to. I think many more people are employed within charity. I would just like to see, it's perhaps a cliche, but I would really like to see some of the people who are earning the most money going out and giving back. I'd like to see some real evidence of this, not just, and I'm not talking about setting up your own school like Toby Young. I'm talking about actually, taking Meals on Wheels. If you want to cut Meals on Wheels, let's see you deliver Meals on Wheels. People who are earning a lot of money, who claim, I have to work really hard for that money. Well, no, you don't. Let me see what you mean by the big society, because there are loads of other people who are doing it anyway. And David Cameron didn't invent that, can't lay claim to it. It doesn't belong to him.
We're a bit pushed for time, but quickly, Martin, will you be getting involved?
In the big society?
Yes.
Look, if I was being uncharitable, I would say it was a soundbite that's been going on for too long. Cameron came up with it during the election out of the blue, arguably lost the Conservatives the election because people didn't know what it was. It's a vague idea. If I was being charitable, I would say it's the Conservatives trying to adopt community politics, community empowerment, their version of what I would call liberalism. I'm all for communities having more say in what they do. I'm all for communities taking more power. But, like you, I work 12-hour days. I run a youth party on top of my full-time job. I don't have time to go and run my library. I don't have time to go and run a school as well. That's why we employ librarians and teachers.
So you don't think
Martin, is this an area where the Liberals and the Tories are split?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, it's a Conservative idea, and the Conservatives need to sort of put more effort into explaining what it is. But it's a difficult thing to try. I'll be honest, it's a difficult thing to try and get across at the time of austerity. The difference between this and the New Deal was the New Deal was backed by billions and billions of dollars to get people back to work. The big society needs that sort of investment to help people become more independent. And during a time of cuts, I find it hard to marry the two.
Jason, quick reply on that.
Well, it is getting investment actually, and Project Merlin, which was a government approach to the banking sector, secured £200 million in funds from the banks to the big society
which I
bank,
applaud, of course,
which is a fantastic idea. So to say there's no money to make it work is absurd. I mean, the National Citizen Service
I'm
is
not
going to be
saying there's
rolled
no
out.
money. I'm saying that a project which is meant to be a big idea, meant to change society, needs big
But it's also
resources.
just changing, I think, the ethos. And I think, you mentioned taxes, and it's simply wrong to assume that in a society, just because you pay taxes, you've done your bit for your country.
I
That is
agree with you.
completely wrong.
I
And
agree
that is
with
what we
you.
need to reverse. Move away from a system of entitlement to a system of contribution, where the individual
But
actually
referring back
contributes
to
more.
education and libraries, I do feel if I paid my taxes, I do want to have a library and a school for my
Yeah.
child that I don't have to run myself.
Then ask your local authority to cut the pay of the chief executive. Here in Harrow, the chief executive earns 220 grand. Get them to cut the pay of the chief
Oh,
executive,
come on, if this is
and they can
about
keep the
who's
libraries
getting
open.
paid what, come on, who
No, but you
funds
do-
the Tory
Harrow,
party?
Harrow,
I mean, come
Harrow
on.
has a high,
That's just silly.
Harrow has the third highest council tax in the country, yet it's paying a climate change official £85,000 a year.
Isn't
I mean,
Harrow
is
run
that
by the
value for money?
Conservatives?
Sorry?
Isn't Harrow run by the
It doesn't matter who it's run by. It doesn't matter who it's run by. It doesn't matter. Local authority waste, which is going to be tackled, which is one of the targets with the big society, needs to be cut. And local authorities need to spend people's money far more responsibly. And that is why government transparency has been introduced, where the local authority spending over £500 will be made public, which Labour, especially here in Harrow, opposed for a very long time.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jason. We'll move on to the next question. Thanks for all your thoughts on that one.